Now, this next extraordinary woman needs no introduction. If you've been to any one of JICNY's events or programs in the past 2 decades, you've run into Jodi, and you've seen her running around making sure every little detail of every moment goes off without a hitch. Every guest is taken care of, every volunteer is having a meaningful experience, and most of all, she is a person who has dedicated her life alongside her husband, Gavin, not only to raising their own 3 beautiful children, but also creating a home away from home for tens of thousands of Jewish internationals who are so far away from their own families. Jodi Samuels is an author, connector, speaker, nonprofit leader, world traveler, community activist, special needs advocate, wife, and mom. Now that's a mouthful, Jodi. Jodi founded Jewish International Connection in order to provide community for foreign Jews in New York, and now also runs outreach events in Israel. Jodi and her husband and their 3 children currently live in Jerusalem, where they host hundreds of people every month for Shabbat meals and events in their homes. She is also the author of Chutzpah, Wisdom and Wine, Journey of an Unstoppable Woman, and unstoppable she is. Jodi, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. So Gavin and I live by the philosophy that you cannot change the whole world, but you can change the world in your own way. I met Gavin during my gap year when I was in Israel. I was just 19 years old. I was in Israel just a few months. I was newly observant, so was Gavin. And we were both young, naive, very passionate, and very idealistic. And I told Gavin on my second date that all I wanted to have was a home that was an open home with a large Shabbat table full of guests. He agreed. We've had a crazy journey. We've lived in 5 countries, many far-flung places. But the thing that we've always done is try to see how we, as a couple, could impact the Jewish people. In 2000, Gavin and I moved to New York. I'd been in New York just 1 week when I met a guy named Steve Eisenberg, and he asked his famous question, "What are you doing on Shabbat?" He set us up at a family for a Shabbat meal. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the beginning of a 20-year partnership. For 20 years, we've been setting up hundreds and hundreds of people for Shabbat meals, for holiday programs. We recently celebrated 129th wedding. Steve's class, can you imagine, for 20 years has been getting over 60, 70 young professionals every single week learning Torah. 6 years ago, Gavin and I moved to New York City and moved to Israel. And that's where we expanded our programming to Jerusalem and to Tel Aviv. This year, when the whole world turned absolutely upside down with COVID, we changed the entire programming to pivot online. But I really want to share with you one story that defines JIC. Our mission is to be a Jewish home away from home, and I really believe this story tells it. We had a young neighbor across the hall from us named Ari. Ari was the great American guy into his basketball, into his sport, and I was the Jewish mom who always nagged him, "Ari, when you're coming for a Shabbat dinner?" Finally, he agreed to come for a Shabbat dinner. On the other side of the story, one weeknight, Gavin and I were sitting in a bar on the Upper West Side. When this girl walked past, she saw Gavin's kippah in the window, and she stopped and she said, "Hi, I just moved to New York a few days ago. Do you know where I could possibly meet other young Jewish people?" And our friends laughed and they were like, "Of all the people in the whole world that you could ask was the Samuels?" This was Andy. We invited her over for Shabbat dinner. That Monday, Ari and Andy sat next to each other at Steve's class. They got married, they lived across the hall from us, and then they moved out of the city, like many people do, and we lost touch. And that was until last summer. We were in Milan airport about to board a flight to Tel Aviv, and they were disembarking from the Tel Aviv flight. And there were Ari and Andy with their 4 beautiful children, and they're now a religious family living in Israel. And ladies and gentlemen, that is what it means to us. Your support of the Jewish International Connection is an investment in the Jewish future. L'chaim.